Okay, so this is going to be my full review of Raw. I'm not going to try to keep it too long. I know, 13, 15 minutes is usually, the standard of what I'm seeing on YouTube, but just my takeaways on reviews. So you had John Cena and CM Punk have something in the ring, like a back and forth almost. And CM Punk is basically saying, he doesn't care too much about the WWE, but he doesn't want John Cena to ruin wrestling. And then I don't know how CM Punk just gets a match at Night of Champions, which I hate this. I don't hate Cena versus Punk at Night of Champions. I hate that CM Punk could not qualify for Money in the Bank. He doesn't even win Money in the Bank, but he gets a title shot at Night of Champions. So what is the point of the King of the Ring tournament? What is the point of Money in the Bank? What is the point of anything if CM Punk could just, challenge John Cena at Night of Champions? So why wasn't the belt on the line at Saturday Night Main Event with R-Truth? I just think it's dumb. It's for cheap pops. There's not going to be a story there. It's just CM Punk versus Cena, and it's only because I believe it's in Saudi Arabia. If you were going to Saudi Arabia and making this a good main event, why not give us a flushed out story? It is, I don't know. I hate this. Vince would have never done anything like that. But we're going to go ahead and move on because we have the Fatal 4-Way match, Queen of the Ring tournament, Rhea Ripley, Kairi Sane versus, Rhea Ripley, Kairi Sane, Liv Morgan, and Roxanne Perez. They battling for that spot. Now, boom. I'm not going to say A+ match. I am going to give this match a B. And everyone in this match is a main eventer. Even Kairi. Kairi's been main eventing, Japan, everywhere. Roxanne Perez been main eventing NXT. Roxanne Perez is the prodigy. Her wrestling ability is perfect. Liv Morgan, top. Rhea Ripley, top superstar. The weakest one probably right now is Kairi. Just from the sentiment of wrestling now, they weren't really utilizing her. But if you go back 5 years, Kairi Sane was on top with Asuka. Argue with that in the comments, but go look back at the footage. Kairi Sane is a beast. I mean, she hit a double insane elbow to Raquel and Rhea off outside of the ring, which was crazy. Then she did the insane elbow on Liv, and then Roxanne took advantage of that and did a roll up pin, which it was heartbreaking almost because we wanted Kairi to win, but we got to progress this story with Judgment Day. Her and Liv have tension. Now, Chad Gable versus AJ Styles. I was watching that match and then I don't know what happened. I got caught up doing something, and when I came back, that match was over, and I was like, I'm not rewatching this. I'm not, because it doesn't make any sense. Not that the match doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter who won this match. It really didn't. But AJ Styles won this match. he hit him with the Styles Clash, and boom. I don't get it. I don't know why. But then we had, what's her name? One of the Bella twins. She came back. And she mixed up with Io, like, in the hallway. And then Io's kind of like, thank you. I think Nikki Bella. Sorry about that. Io Sky's like, yeah, you paved the way. I wish that was true. When you look at Io Sky isn't a diva per se. In that era, divas were, they were superstars, but they had this diva, like, I'm going to put the definition of a diva, in the description, but a WWE diva was more so doing like Playboy shoots and stuff like that. Like, you had to looking good was more important than having 5-star matches. If that's coming across to y'all, like, now it's more about the wrestling. But, the women wrestlers right now, they're pulling off both. But back then, Awesome Kong wasn't considered a diva. Beth Phoenix, you could say, was a mix. Molly Holly, turned into a diva. But you had people like Victoria, who wasn't pulling off the best moves, but still considered a diva. When you look at Kairi Sane, she's not a diva. When you look at Io Sky, she's not a diva. When you look at Bianca Belair, just based on some of her ring gear, she's not a diva. You look at Bayley, not a diva. Look at Julia, not a diva. But, they're putting great wrestling back. Now, outside of WWE, and you look at Instagram and stuff, you can say, oh, they're being diva-ish. So that's just, saying she paved the way for women's wrestling. I wish that was true. Yeah, she kept some fans. She kept, men interested. I don't think kids were really looking up to Nikki Bella like, oh my God, I want to be Nikki Bella. You maybe had some, maybe more teenager-ish, but you have 3, 4, 5-year-olds want to be Bianca Belair. Like it's a difference, Okay, next we're gonna move on to the segment where Becky Lynch comes out and just cries. She ain't crying, but she's like venting angrily, which I would go to say Becky Lynch, almost paved the way. I never liked Becky Lynch wrestling because she wrestles like a brawler. But we need that. We need people who are brawlers in WWE. And especially for the women's division. So she's different. But she came out saying, where are my you deserve it chants? Which Becky Lynch would have gotten the you deserve it chants only if the story was great. If they would have went about it where she wins, Money in the Bank or something like that and cashed in or something, you can't do that now, of course, but if there was some other tournament or something, or just a good story, where she could have still beat Lyra, and they would have said you deserved it. I mean, look at Dominic. I mean, that's long-term storytelling that worked. But I mean, he's the ultimate heel. But Bayley comes back, and they were scrapping. Shout outs to Bayley. Bayley is going to take that title from Becky Lynch. You know, Becky Lynch just wanted this title to add to her collection of saying she got that title. And they had to take it off Lyra because she was fumbling the bag. You know, Lyra, I'm not going to say send her back to NXT, but hey, let Lyra start, you know, beating some jobbers that we don't see on Raw. You have a roster of like 300 something wrestlers. Throw them to Lyra. You know, you don't care about story, so she could just start beating them in exhibition matches or something, or WWE speed. You know, we don't care. Next, you know, we're going to talk about R-Truth. Not too much to go deep into this segment, but basically R-Truth is saying, I'm sick of being y'all coon, watermelon, seed spitting, you know, comedy show. And he's going to be Ron Killings. This was great. The only problem with this is R-Truth is 53. It's a tad bit too late, but if you were gonna do it, this is the perfect time to do it. A lot of people saying, you know, the whole R-Truth thing isn't a work. I don't think it's a work, but at the same time, you know, with WrestleMania 42 coming up, and if you know what 42 symbolizes to black people, not just the black people, but the gematria of the number 42, it could all be planned. You know, maybe it's something else. You know, maybe Triple H fired him, and you know, the overseers, you know, whoever makes, you know, the decision said, oh, wait, no, we need R-Truth, you know, to make these numbers line up and stuff. We have to save him and bring him back because it only makes sense. You know, I'm going to make another video breaking down WrestleMania 42. You know, by it being in New Orleans, the gematria would have matched up. But they pulled it and kept it in Las Vegas, which is shocking. So I'm going to go further into that, but R-Truth's turning into Ron Killings. This is the only time to do it. R-Truth probably not going to be here for, you know, 5 more years. He probably got a deal that maybe was like 1 year. You know, I would just say R-Truth, finish out the story, beefing with John Cena, and maybe take the title from Cena, be champion, let someone win the Royal Rumble, and beat R-Truth at WrestleMania 42. Boom, R-Truth could go home. He won the title. They sent him off great with retirement, treated him better. That's what I'm thinking is probably going to happen. But let's move on. You know, we moving on to Dominic, Sami Zayn, Braun Breaker, and Penta, which was a good match. You know, Penta, you know, being a luchador, they're kind of treating him like a luchador, but Penta is better than that. Dominic doing his thing, Braun Breaker doing his thing. Sami Zayn wins this match, and LA Knight basically comes in, you know, gets the big dog, Braun Breaker, and Sami Zayn took advantage of that. I don't like Sami Zayn. Other people like Sami Zayn. The WWE universe loves Sami Zayn, and I don't know why, but there's a lot of people in the WWE universe, and I guess that was the right choice. I have no idea. I hate Sami Zayn. I don't like his wrestling or anything about that. I don't know. I really don't like it, but let's talk about Gunther versus Jey Uso. And this was the right decision. I mean, this was the right decision. Jey Uso should have dropped it. They dropped it in a way where Jey Uso doesn't look weak. You know, he was technically, I'm not going to say injured, but he wasn't 100%. So you can drop the yeet fatigue. It was time. I know the cameramen, the people working in the back, the announcers, the referees, Jey Uso probably was sick of yeeting. You know, I mean, the yeet fatigue is real. It was too much yeeting. Too much. I mean, you're yeeting on SmackDown, you're yeeting on Raw, you're yeeting at the PLEs. You got children, you know, yeeting at graduation. The yeet fatigue has to stop for about a month. You know, take Jey Uso off of TV. You know, bring Jey Uso back maybe at Night of Champions. Because the yeet fatigue was crazy. But Gunther, perfect timing. Like I said in my other video, I wish Gunther would have did the bear hug at least once. You're the ring general. You're supposed to know all kinds of, you know, submissions and, you know, stuff like that. I mean, Stephanie Vaquer, her finishing move is like perfect. You know, it's, you know, Gunther could have did something like that. I mean, you're the ring general. You know, you're supposed to be like a William Regal kind of moveset. William Regal would have made this match way better. You know, because, you know, he just has that knowledge. He has that wrestling, you know, intelligence. Gunther doesn't really have that. You know, I don't know if it's going to take Gunther a few more years to get it, but I mean, how many times did he do the sleeper? You know, there's other submissions. You know, if you're trying to work on somebody's midsection, okay, you did a few kicks and stuff. You know, go do what Brock Lesnar do. Brock Lesnar put out the bear hug on Hulk Hogan and made him bleed from the mouth. You know, did he not see that before? You know, also when they go into the corner with the turnbuckle, the shoulder to the midsection, you know, you could have did that, you know, 10 times, like really drill it in. You know, there was a lot of moves that weren't utilized to make this super believable. You know, winning off the sleeper is one thing, but you put the sleeper on Jey Uso for 2 minutes, he gets out and puts a sleeper on you. And you almost tap. Man, Jey Uso and Gunther need to sit down, look at their matches, and say, what could we fix? But they don't care. You know, they go collect a check and they go home. I'm pretty sure Jey Uso and Gunther don't even get on the phone and have a 10, 15-minute conversation about how can we make this a memorable Raw match. You know, Seth and Jey Uso had a good match. Gunther and Jey Uso could have had a good match. You know, it looks like we were watching LFG, like a match on there. You know, overall, Gunther versus Jey Uso was a good decision. I'm going to give it 3 stars because it was better than their 2-star match at WrestleMania. And last, I just want to bring up Asuka's coming back next week. It's about time. So we're getting Asuka back. She's going to be in a fatal 4-way. That's going to go hella hard. Asuka might win, but I'm thinking they're going to give it to Stephanie Vaquer. Stephanie Vaquer should win the Queen of the Ring. Period. She's been on, it's time to make a megastar. Give Stephanie Vaquer Queen of the Ring. Let her win the tournament. And, she can either face Io Sky or maybe even Naomi. Naomi would put her over. I don't think Naomi will have a problem with that, but Stephanie Vaquer and Naomi would have a good match. Veteran to, world-class superstar. But I'm thinking we're going to get some tension maybe between Io, Asuka, and Kairi. Is it time to break up Damage Control? Probably so. You don't have Dakota Kai. And having a Japanese faction, just them 3, you could utilize that, but WWE doesn't know what to do with Japanese wrestlers. Shinsuke Nakamura should be the top, 5 wrestlers on the card, but they just dropped the ball. I would take the Kabuki Warriors and I would just use them in the tag team division because Raw needs a women's tag team besides Liv and Raquel. You release the other 2 actual only women's tag partners. I forgot what their name is. I'm going to put their picture, Katana and Cadence or something like that. Y'all just underutilized them and they got released. So, at least, Asuka and Kairi, they have a proven track record, but that was Raw. Quick results. AJ Styles defeat Chad Gable. Roxanne Perez win that fatal 4-way. Sami Zayn won. And Gunther is your new World Heavyweight Champion. Also, one last thing. Liv Morgan attacked Nikki Bella. I don't think anything is coming from that. Will Nikki Bella get back in the ring to face Liv at Evolution 2.0? Maybe. It depends how bad, they want to hurt the competition. Competition meaning AEW. We might get that. I would say, what the hell, give it to us. Give it to us. Because there's nothing going on, on Raw with the women's division. When was the last time Io defended her belt? I'll wait. Put it in the comments. Peace.